As we commemorate 16 days of activism against gender-based violence, let's turn our focus on healthy masculinity, the idea that men can be emotionally expressive without feeling emasculated, as opposed to toxic masculinity, comes with norms that can be harmful to other people, particularly women and children. I am joined now by Dr. Ntombifikile Mtshali, who is the CEO of Shout It Out, as well as Craig Wilkinson. He's the founder and CEO of Father Nation. Good to have you both on the program this afternoon. Craig, let me start with you. Now, as the CEO of Father Nation, could you share some success stories or even impactful moments where your organization has successfully addressed this issue of toxic masculinity?
Certainly, yeah. We've been doing this for over 10 years now, and one of the most successful programs we've had is what we call Bands of Brothers, where we get groups of men together, smaller groups, 10 to 15, and promote open, honest dialogue. And as you and I know, as men don't talk. You know? So when men get an opportunity to talk and share their challenges and realize that, hey, I'm not alone in this, magical things begin to happen. At the same time, we teach them about positive masculinity, that true masculinity is a beautiful, powerful gift to humanity. It's distorted, wounded masculinity that abuses. And we found that a lot of men transform in these situations. We've had men who were abusing who are no longer. We've had men who were plotting and planning murders who turned around from that. So we've seen tremendous success in these men's dialogues, which is just one of the programs we run.
Dr. Mtshali, for the assistance of our viewers to really understand what toxic masculinity is, maybe let's get a proper understanding of what are we discussing here? What's this phenomena?
Thank you, Tantla. So firstly, I'm from an organization called Shout It Now. I'm fearful that I might get fired when I allow you to call it Shout It Now, but Shout It Out.
Apologies for that.
Toxic masculinity, and you've already, it's okay. You've already touched on it. It's how we, and I will talk about what it is that from a positive side it needs to look like. And you've already touched on it, being boys, young men being allowed to fully express their human emotion, all of them across the range of full human emotions that they're entitled to, without fear of being judged or being reprimanded or being told you need to man up, etc., etc. So what would be toxic is us telling boys that they're not allowed to express their emotions, that violence or acting out is okay, and that basically to be abusive is okay. And we know that masculinity is a positive thing, and we want us to be able to have these conversations, opening spaces like Craig is saying, opening spaces to have these dialogues around how do you express your human emotion. So be it what we think sometimes is negative emotions that we do not associate it we do not associate it with boys, such as crying or being vulnerable or sharing that you are fearful or that you are overwhelmed, and giving boys and young men and men in general that space to be able to have that emotion and in a judgmental way. And I think that's what would be what constitutes positive masculinity in this case.
Well, I guess it also then begs the question, Dr. Mtshali, as to whether are you noting or seeing a positive influence or change through some of the programs that you've discussed here?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to raise an example for myself, especially as a mother of two boys, and how we navigate these very difficult conversations, and it's by no means easy. And I'm not saying that we've gotten it right, but we have these conversations around what does it mean when you've got these feelings that you are allowed to cry, you are allowed to be angry, but how do you channel that in healthy ways, and how do we have those conversations around, some of the programs that we also have, we call it Boys to Men in our program at Shout It Now. It speaks around gender norms, where what do we associate with male, it's basically gender stereotypes. What is it that we associate with boys, and what do we associate with girls? And it starts at a very young age. When you tell boys that blue is for boys and pink is for girls, you're not supposed to play with this type of toy because you are this gender, etc., etc. And it's in the language that we have this conversation in that becomes, and we inculcate these stereotypes, talking about what positive masculinity is, what being a human and being able to express your human emotions in a safe and a healthy way, what that looks like. And that really is where I think we need to be focusing our conversations on, primarily because those are unformed or not strong or concrete thoughts that young people still have. So having these conversations, so to bend the stick, it means you need to do it while it's still wet. So we need to start shaping those conversations, shaping perspective, and hopefully that takes us into these programs that Craig is speaking about, where we don't, because what he's talking about is undoing some of the damage that has already been done, and also seeing how we can proactively move with that. And I really think the focus should be on prevention and what we need to be doing about that.
Craig, I guess as a follow-up to what Dr. Mtshali is saying, she speaks about the importance of undoing the damage that's been caused, but there's been a lot of emphasis on focusing on the boy child as we observe 16 days of activism against violence on women and children. Why is it so important to focus on the boy child?
Well, boys grow up learning how to be a man from older men. And unless we have older men mentoring, fathering, teaching them, as a father, I cannot teach my daughter how to be a woman. Yeah. My wife cannot teach my son how to be a man. And so, although men and women are absolutely of equal value and human first, there are differences in boys and girls. And I often compare masculinity to a motor vehicle. A motor vehicle is a beautiful gift to humanity, but it can also be a dreadful killer. And you need to learn how to drive that motor vehicle, when to stop, to stay within the speed limit, how to drive it. And masculinity is exactly the same. Men have drivers, they have testosterone, they have different drivers often to women, and those need to be taught how to be used correctly. When a woman says no, it means no. And a man needs to tell a young boy, that means no. This is how you treat a woman. This is how you conduct yourself as a man. With strength comes responsibility. And that strength that men have physically and the drivers they have through testosterone need to be taught how to be used in a correct fashion so that men become a gift to society and not a curse. So true masculinity, beautiful gift. False wounded masculinity, dreadful curse. And the biggest single missing factor is older men, mentors and present and engaged fathers teaching young boys how to be men. Because in the absence of that, what do? They look to gangsters, they look to the media, they look to their peers, and they follow a lot of the false narratives around masculinity. And I mean, for me, there are four. Sex, power, money, and big boys don't cry. Yeah. Boys grow up with these narratives. The more sexual partners I have, the more of a man I am. What an incredible lie. The more power I have, the more of a man. No. It's not how much power you have, it's what you do with your power that counts. The more money I have. What a lie. The poorest man can leave behind the richest legacy. And finally, what the doctor was really emphasizing, big boys don't cry. Of course they do. So there are two elements of masculinity, and we need to focus on both. The one is tough, strong, resolute, competitive, man up, take it on the chin, don't cry. There's that one side. But that's only half of masculinity. The other half is tender, loving, caring, vulnerable, able to share. And if we have men that grow up with both of those, we'll have a powerfully positive society. We believe heal men, heal society, man. Heal men, heal the world.
Craig, I'm a father of two young boys myself, and I've always wondered, especially when addressing issues such as this, how do I speak to them on their level?
How do you speak to them on their level? Well, boys want to be called out as heroes. They really do, And if we beat men up and say, you're toxic, you're trash, it's just going to make men worse. So, so speaking boys on their level, observe them and see what it is that drives them, what it is that makes their heart come alive, and call that out in them. The more you call out the positive in boys, and the champion in boys, and the hero in boys, the more the bad will be shed, and the good will come out. And so to get on their level, I've written books on fathering. One of the first things you've got to do as a father and as a mother is see your child. Get them. Often what we do as fathers, we try and cookie cut our kids. So I might be a soccer player and my son wants to be a piano player. And I don't want him to play the piano. I want him to play soccer, But I need to see the piano player in him and actually relate to them and say, who you are, I see who you are, and who you are is valid and good. We can't change who our kids are. We help them read the script that's already written on their heart and validate that and call that out and facilitate an environment where who they are as is written on their soul is able to flourish and thrive and be the best it can be.
Dr. Mtshali, as we wrap up our conversation, I think it's also important for us to also address issues around mental health. Is there a way or intersection at which positive masculinity or even toxic masculinity then intersects with issues around mental health?
Absolutely, quite correctly in that way, because if you think about it, we tell toxic masculinity is saying you are a boy, you're a macho, you've got this energy and you've got this power, and therefore you're not allowed to be vulnerable. You're not allowed to be, you show your emotions, especially the perceived to be negative emotions. So when they go through those emotions, then they start thinking, but there's something wrong with me. And therefore they're not able to go and seek out therapy or support where, for women or their girl counterparts can be able to do that in a safe way and in a healthy way. So they're definitely not able to, go through those, go through the steps of seeking the help that they need, which is usually mental health related. Also, we know that we've got more suicide rates. So the suicide rates, are, especially amongst young boys and men as well, and that can also be interlinked to mental health issues and concerns or conditions.
And Craig, speaking to mental health issues, and also as we wrap up, we would have noted that there is a significant rise in the number of men also committing suicide. Yeah. What factors do you think are contributing to this worrying phenomenon?
There are quite a few factors. I think, as the doctor rightly says, when men don't talk, when they wrap it up, you see, the narrative is to be a man, I need to be strong, and I can never cry, never be vulnerable. Yeah. So what they do is they hold it in. And, they say one of the biggest lies that men say is, I'm fine, when they're not fine. So we need to create an environment in which men are, it's okay. It's not destigmatize being vulnerable. You see, vulnerability is not weakness. Vulnerability is strength. It's much easier to say I'm fine when I'm not. That's the one thing. The other thing is a narrative around masculinity. And sadly, this is socialized in men and women. Yeah. That, Chris Rock, the comedian, said it well. He said, only women, children, and pets are loved unconditionally. Men have to bring something to the party. And that narrative is there, Whether I'm the sugar daddy, the blesser, whatever, okay, I have to bring something, I have to provide. So we have to create an environment where, as a man, you can be unemployed and still a beautiful, powerful, wonderful gift to society. Because what are you doing? You're contributing in other ways, A woman can be the primary breadwinner. A man can still be equally a man, because even though he's not providing, but he is providing in other ways. He's providing emotionally and physically. So if we change that narrative and we also create an environment in which it's okay for men to be vulnerable, even warriors get wounded and they need to get healed, and there's a time when they're down. So in a man and a woman relationship, there's a time when the man is the weaker party because he's wounded and damaged and he relies on his wife to strengthen, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's that partnership that we need to make okay.
Let me thank my guests. Thank you for joining us. That is Craig Wilkinson, also Dr. Mtshali, speaking to us about issues pertaining to positive masculinity as well.